Hello ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you can all hear me. Michael Ingledew from TDW. This week Facebook is messing us around, so we are not going to bother transcoding to our Facebook page. So somebody's just going to put a quick note on there for me to make sure everybody comes across to our website. Now I see there's a load of you on our website already, and I will check YouTube as we keep on going. So hopefully everything is running and running smoothly. So we will get into Thursday Thoughts here very, very shortly after I run the intro. There you go, ladies and gents. So those of you that sent in your comments about the intro was a little bit annoying, there you go. I've changed it a little bit this week, and hopefully that's a little bit more interesting for you. Michael Ingledew from TDW, I'm sure you know who I am at this point. So we are streaming to TDIQ, to our website and to YouTube at the moment. We have had to drop Facebook. So anybody who's had to jump across from Facebook, we apologise for that. So I am running across all of the items here that if you want to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with us via our website, via our social channels, and all of those wonderful things that you need to do. So I've got my notes up in front of me here. I've got somebody monitoring questions who will come up and pop up and show me stuff as it happens. And we're going to do our normal, which is we're going to go through some industry news, of which there's been a whole raft of things, and then some TDW news, and then some questions that have come in. And then right at the very end, I've got a question for you. So please do stick around for that. I see our website's going crazy. So I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to go through the industry news. The industry news, I have deliberately focused on that stuff that I think is going to affect us in information. And actually right up until the point of going live, I just received an email in from one of my contacts. So I might be able to add a little bit ad hoc. I'll try my very best. But I'm going to go and change some of the camera angles here, and I want to go into some of the news for you. So I'm going to start with my friends at Meggitt, and they've won another contract, and I announced last week that they'd won a contract. And Ian, thank you for your email and your positive comments. I don't know whether I responded or not yet. You know, these guys are kind of hitting home runs at the moment in the market, which is fantastic. But this is for their actuators and electric valves. Now I think that might be the Swiss guys, but all sits underneath James, I don't know. But great news on that. But also on the Meggitt front, and if nobody's following Meggitt right now, they are doing what Thales did a few years ago, which is they are creating a super site. They're going to have a super site in the West Midlands here in the UK, and I think that's going to involve the consolidation of departments and locating all of departments into one area. Now how smoothly that goes we don't know, but you know, essentially that's what's going to happen, and that's been given the go-ahead. And I know there's lots of opinion kicking around on that. And the email that I just received in just before I came on air was from my friends at MTU, and I noticed that you guys have just won a large contract to supply engines, diesel engines, to French naval frigates. And I've asked the question, I actually asked two questions. One question was, do you plan to use ship decks? And the other question was, will this be S1000D? So the guy that's answered the question for me has said straight up that he doesn't believe right now that they're using ship decks, although he has deferred to a higher authority. So as soon as I get some information on that from MTU, I will make sure that it comes across for you, and you guys can get into that. This I thought was pretty interesting because anybody who's involved in nuclear information production, it's a whole different ball game. It's a different beast, and you have to have information that's completely segregated from other, should we say, normal information. And but it looks like Thales are going to be investing a lot of money into India. And I talked about India last week, and India is in the news massively on the information that they are going to be producing around the defense sector down there. So right now, India is going to be a place to be for the defense sector, and it looks like Thales is going to be investing a lot of money down that way. But also Thales is, I noticed this adds on to what I talked about last week. If you remember, I talked about the bring your own encryption from Thales and the investments that they're doing in that. This, I think, builds onto that. They are going to be opening what is known as a digital factory in Asia somewhere, is what they've said. And it's going to be between India and Australia. And, I actually like both countries, but, they are going to be opening something down there. So I think, that's kind of a hotbed. And, although it says that it's going to be for coding, they're still going to need information around coding. Anybody that's involved in documentation around code, they still need the documentation to support the production of the code and the use of the code. Rolls-Royce, I can't go a week without mentioning Rolls-Royce, but I won't dwell on this. Again, all of these pieces of news that I've found will be linked down below when we release the full blog article to support this Thursday Thoughts. And it normally gets produced on a Friday, released on a Saturday, and then is included on the newsletter on a Sunday. So, but they have won a large contract up there in Norway, which is a beautiful country. This I thought was pretty interesting, and I am not going to get on my high horse about Brexit. I am not going to talk about anything around politics. But this is happening. This is happening in the world. That people are having to make plans. Organisations are having to make plans around possible outcomes of Brexit. And if anybody's been watching the news here in the UK today, Brexit is all over the news. And my book behind me, 5 on Brexit Island, if you've not watched my YouTube tutorial on that book, it's worth a little watch. But these guys, Rolls-Royce, have now said that they are making contingency plans in terms of Brexit to move some of their design approvals to Germany. So, which I think, obviously makes sense from a business planning perspective, but I don't think that this will be the first and last that we will hear of this. In fact, I know of other organisations that are actually planning their Brexit strategies right now. BAE Systems and Dell, this again comes on to the cloud stuff that I talked about last week, which these guys have partnered to develop a cloud solution, a cloud-based information data deployment solution for the US government. Now, this is something that our government does right now, and if you were at our last Innovation in Information workshop, you would have seen that we had an organisation there, a company there called Cahoots, and Cahoots is one of the only cloud-based solution providers that is cleared to be used by the UK military for collaboration on information production and deployment. So this is a story that I think that we should be watching very, very closely, because I know that there are challenges in certain sectors that around secure deployment of mission critical information is a key factor. And it's interesting that BAE Systems and Dell have come together on that. This I thought was pretty interesting. And, so Germany is investing right now a lot of money into their defence sector, and this is a Tornado replacement program, and all the major players, as you would expect, are throwing their hats into the ring on this, and that's Airbus, Boeing, Lockheed. Now, whilst I was researching this, I actually found out some really interesting information, which was that the Eurofighter, which is still, you know, technologically a superb piece of equipment, they're already planning the successor to the Eurofighter, the Typhoon. And the really interesting piece of news, and I can only surmise that this is down to Brexit and those kind of open discussions that nobody really knows what's happening, is BAE Systems are not going to be invited to the party, as far as I can tell. It looks like that it's just going to be Airbus and Dassault in France are going to partner to look at the next generation of fighter aircraft. So very, very interesting piece of news. Now, this I thought was quite nice and quite interesting. A couple of weeks ago we talked about how Bombardier and Airbus have come together for this platform, and I heard today that it looks like Airbus are actually going to rename the platform. Early contenders are, some of the news reports are saying that it's going to be the A200, but I looked at kind of the mechanics of this relationship, and it looks like that Airbus owns 50.1% of this joint venture or this partnership. So I guess if they want to rename it, they're going to rename it. But that has a consequence for information, as we all know, especially if you're using specific information types. This one was really interesting because it supports what I was saying in a podcast a couple of weeks ago. And in the podcast, I was saying how technical information is now becoming a real source of direct and indirect revenue. Well, the CEOs of these organizations are saying that MROs is a source of tremendous growth for them. The new commercial MROs are growing. They're on the rise, which means that they need spares, they need information, they need support, which is, you know, essentially great news for us in the information field. And that supports, the reason I pulled that out is because it supports really, really nicely the message that I was talking about in the podcast a couple of weeks ago. This one made me smile, and it seems Boeing is throwing their hat into everything at the moment, and no more so than the heavy lift helicopter requirement that is going out from the German military for the Bundeswehr. And it seems that Boeing has partnered with, it says, 10 other companies, and as far as I can tell, most of these companies are German-based companies, which makes a tremendous amount of sense. It looks like they're positioning the Chinook, but what made me smile, a lot of my friends that I support and know very, very dearly in Germany are on this list. So the Liebherr Aerospaces and those kind of guys are on this list, the Diehl guys. You know, I know these people very, very well. So it looks like that's going to be quite a fierce competition for the delivery of that helicopter platform to the German military. This one I thought I would pull out because, you know, we hear a lot about HUMS and we hear a lot about these health and usage management systems and how we integrate with them as information specialists, and you know, how they might drive a technical publications requirement as in terms of availability. Well, UTC Aerospace are showcasing and testing their new one. I forget what they've called it now, but again, I'll put the link down below. You can have a read of that. That's actually really quite interesting. Made me prick my ears, should we say. Bombardier, I have to mention the guys at Bombardier because we all know that they have been in the news recently, but they've just signed, I think it's a 14-year deal. I can't remember off the top of my head. I was trying to find my notes quickly, but it looks like they have signed a new support contract for the Q400. But it's with a company that I'm not even going to try and say the name. So again, you can go and read that yourself and have a look at that. But I think that's only going to be good news for support information and technical publications and all of that great stuff that we work with. I want to talk about, so that's kind of, our traditional technical publications. That's kind of where we sit today, and what kind of happens in our market day to day. And I think they're all kind of the more pertinent stuff. There is some new stuff came out today that I couldn't squeeze in, so I'll move that to next week. But I did mention, I think it was last week, the planned size of the augmented and virtual reality market for sort of the wider consumer market, and it was pretty huge. But there is a report out this week that it says that by 2025 they believe that the military augmented reality market will be worth 1.79 billion US dollars by 2025, which I thought was actually pretty impressive. And 2025 is only really round the corner in terms of software development and capability adoption. So I think that this is something that we as information specialists should really be keeping our eye on, and certainly getting familiar with this capability and this technology will certainly help us and certainly deliver benefits. I'm absolutely sure of that. But conversely, I found this wider report on, it looked at those that have actually tried augmented reality, and it said that out of all of the people that they'd surveyed on this report, only 32% had actually tried augmented reality. 55% didn't plan to. I don't know what happened to the remaining percentages, but what was really interesting is it says that out of the 32% of people that are using augmented reality today as part of their day-to-day life, and I talked in a tutorial, I've got my mobile phone here monitoring the website, but I talk about on here in a tutorial how I do lots of map reading when I go hiking on weekends, and the Ordnance Survey have put augmented reality on their maps so that I can point it at a landscape and it tells me where all the pubs are and it tells me all of that stuff. And that kind of technology I'm now reliant on. I use that regularly, and they're saying out of these 32%, they believe that they are pretty much, that entire 32% rely on augmented reality pretty much daily now, which I think is a pretty interesting stat. This then led me down another journey, and to just digress slightly, I started looking at some artificial intelligence stuff that's going on. And in Australia now, they're using some drones, and I've just packed our drone away. We're going to be doing some tutorials on drones and how technical information is impacting on the consumer market, and how people like me or my next door neighbor who might go and buy a drone, how we have to produce technical manuals now to comply with air regulations. But these guys have now developed technology that they can ping a drone in the air, and artificial intelligence capability monitors the coastline, and it can pick out sharks so they can warn bathers and surfers and that there's danger in their area. Now, I will go on to say that they say that at this point it's 90% accurate. I would actually want it to be 100% accurate if I was in the waters down there, because I know in Australia there's lots of beasties that can eat you, and I thought that was super interesting. Coming on to some TDW news. Apologies to anybody who's a TDW member who posts stuff on LinkedIn. I haven't had time to go through all of your feeds this week. But I did pick this one out today, and I picked this one out today because there is a conference going on in the United States today. It's the AIA conference, and I think it's about the product supportability conference down there. And this is Lisa Muller posted this to the O'Neill Associates feed. And if you don't know who Paul Haslam is, Paul, ex-RAF guy, British, had a company years ago called 10 on 11, then married a US girl and moved to the United States. And I've known Paul for a very long time, actually one of the guys that I respect most in the market, and he really is an S1000D guru. And if you're in the States and you haven't connected with him on LinkedIn or whatever, he would be somebody that you really should connect with. But they're doing a presentation at that show this week, so I thought I would mention that. Our podcast, I did a podcast that Jamie released this morning, protecting technical information, intellectual property, and this is to plant the seed for the next series of podcasts that are going to be coming your way on how do we actually do this. So in this one I articulate the problem, and then we'll start looking at how do we address that problem going forward. And why the great tit in the picture? Well, listen to the podcast and you'll find out why. So that's available right now. Again, I mentioned last week that we were on the road the week before. We put together a vlog from the road. It's about 5 minutes long. It's a bit of fun while we're out on the road, showing you a little bit of some of the scenes that we see, some of the food that we enjoy, and some of the places that we go to. I know that's had a tremendous amount of hits, both on our website and on YouTube. And there's method behind our madness on this. We are teaching ourselves this videography skill for a vision of something that we're going to do with TDW. And so, this is why we're doing this. And, we are going to, put this together over the next couple of weeks. And what we're going to do is that the style that we're doing here, we're going to take your questions and answer them out and about using something that's a little bit more interesting than this gubbins behind me, which I think will be interesting. Something that's actually pretty serious that we are having to take seriously here, and most companies, all companies in Europe are having to take seriously, is the General Data Protection Regulations, which are coming into force mid-May. And these are coming into force, which means that you can contact us at any time and ask us what information we hold about you, what do we do with that information, and how do we protect that information. And this all comes out of all those Yahoo type breaches and that kind of stuff. And this has an impact on technical information as well. So we've got some tutorials coming up on that over the next coming weeks, because this is really super important. But from a TDW perspective, this gives us a great opportunity to look at some technology and implement some capability that we have been looking to for some time now. We've got a huge database of contacts, thousands, and this gives us a great opportunity to move those into a new capability that we want to use. So you will likely get some emails from us asking you to verify whether you would like to stay on our data list or if you'd like to be removed or whatever. But if you ignore this, I know that the European Union are really going to implement this. They're big on data protection and it's coming our way. I just want to say the Innovation in Information workshop that we have planned for July in Tamworth. We have had a number of registrations already. We are going to turn that into more of a workshop-y type thing. There's going to be some presentations on there. So we've called it the Innovation in Information, the Future of Technical Information. And so lots of you have registered for that, which is great. And some of you, I think, are just waiting to know how you're going to pay for your spaces. But do make sure you get yourself on that, because I think that's going to be a pretty interesting event. Spotify, we are finally on Spotify. I think I mentioned it briefly last week. If you are a Spotify user, and well done to Jamie for getting us on Spotify, because I know these guys are notoriously difficult to get listed onto their platform. So if you want to listen to our podcasts and any special editions that we do, subscribe to us on Spotify if you are using that platform. So coming on to some of the questions this week, which is we're at 25 minutes already. So which illustrations do you suggest we use? Okay, we've had a telephone conversation, but what I wanted to do was pull this up so that we could talk about this to our wider audience, because you know, there's a misconception out there that if you use S1000D, you must use CGM, you must use SVG. And in general, you know, this comes from the vendors that are interested in you buying their product. And this is not the case. You don't have to do this. There are reasons why you would want to use that capability. But what you've done is you've given us an idea for a tutorial which we will produce and put on TDIQ. You're a TDIQ subscriber. There is a presentation up on TDIQ that was given by a guy called Rob Woods, I think his name was, a few years ago, where he talked about file formats and graphic formats and their pros and cons and all that of all of those. So go and have a look at that. I think that would be pretty interesting for you. Loved your video from the Old English Pub. Will you do more? I think you're talking about the Royal Oak, which is kind of our favourite pub out in the South Downs here. And ironically, I was there this week. It was Claire's 44th birthday this week. Thank you to everybody who wished her well on LinkedIn and all of those things. So I took Claire there for her lunch, but I sat and spoke to Dave, who I know, who's the landlord, and he's agreed that he will allow us to do some live streams from there. Now, it is in the back end of nowhere, if anybody has followed any of our other tutorials from there. And, you know, we'd be reliant on the back end of nowhere internet. But I'm sure that we'll be good. But there's no phone signal there. There's no fallback. You know, I won't have 4G or anything like that because there is absolutely zero signal down there. But don't hold it against him. He's ex-Royal Navy and a Tottenham Hotspur fan, but they do some fantastic food at that pub if you ever come to the UK. But yes, we will be doing that and more. We've invested in some other capability and technology to do some more outside type broadcasting, which is all this technology around us is for. This came in from Russia. And thank you for your really, really warm message through LinkedIn. You asked us a question, do we implement and support XXX? You know, you asked us about a specific product. And the answer I gave you was, we don't support or implement a specific product. We don't support one product over another. What we do is we help you identify the right product for you and for your organisation. All I will say is that the organisation that you've mentioned has told us, or they have told us, that they're joining us as a TDW member company, and they plan to exhibit at our conference this year. So, but again, thank you very much from, I think you're in Moscow, and you know, thank you very much for your kind words around our blogs and what we're doing. That does explain the activity from Russia. We have seen some activity on our website from Russia, and we thought at first we were being attacked, but it turns out that you're actually quite legitimate. So so this is the big one that I wanted to answer this week, and in fact we're going to do originally I was going to get a box of Lego and do all that kind of stuff. Anybody who does any of our tutorials knows I like to try and demonstrate things graphically when it comes to trying to show these messages. But you are new to S1000D, and you are not entirely convinced that you need a CSDB. Now, we have exchanged some emails, but for the wider audience, the clue's in the title. You know, it's an international specification for technical publications using a common source database. Now, of course, the definition of a common source database varies from organisation to organisation, and but a CSDB needs to perform certain functions. And I want to tell you a story, and which we didn't get the benefit of doing in the email. I supported an organisation a long time ago now, but they only had to produce, I think it was 750 data modules and associated illustrations. And they took the decision that they were not going to invest in a CSDB. Back then, CSDBs were super expensive. And, you know, it was a massive investment in terms of capability for small technical publications departments. I'm just going to have a quick swill. We're not sponsored. And But so what they did is they decided that they were going to manage this manumatically in a file-based system, and they were going to do everything through spreadsheets. And then when the time came to deliver that information to their customer, it was quickly rejected. And it was rejected because they had inconsistent ID status information, inconsistent data module codes, links and references that didn't resolve. They had duplicate ICN numbers. And it turns out that actually the Manumatic process didn't work for them. And regardless of how careful they thought they were actually being. And they actually ended up spending more money trying to rectify the situation, and of course then loss of reputation in front of their customer, which doesn't help. So can you do it without a CSDB? Absolutely you can, and we do here at TDW. But that's because we only produce 10-15 data modules at a time, and for tutorials. We're not supporting a major platform that requires business rules implementation and all of those kind of things. So if you can find the money, and CSDBs are a lot cheaper than what they used to be, I would suggest that you buy one. And if you need help identifying one, there's some really good ones out there, and some affordable ones out there as well, actually. Right, my question for you guys. Ironically, Facebook let us down today in terms of going out to a live broadcast, but we want to step up what we do. I want to change what we do with Thursday Thoughts. Okay, this started 7 episodes ago with us testing the water. You guys like it. The feedback we're getting is that it's something that you like watching, and you know, like the kind of level of information that we give. I want to change that. I want to change it up. I want to give you more, which means that we were going to have to drop our live streaming to Facebook. I know we have about 100 people following us on Facebook, and you know, we're not going to close the group or anything. What we're not going to do is live stream to Facebook, because that means we can do extra things in our videos, which would mean that we are not breaching any terms of use of Facebook. And namely, that's mentioning or running video for third-party brands or something along those lines. You're not allowed to do that for Facebook, but we can do that on our website, and we can do that on TDIQ, and we can do that on YouTube. So unless you guys are going to vehemently disagree or get super upset, we're going to stop the live stream to Facebook, ironically not working today, and we will then just when this is available on YouTube, we will put the link to YouTube and say, there it is, go and have a look and watch the video over there. That way we're not going to upset the Facebook police, and nobody's going to dob us in. So let me know. And I wanted to mention Tech Data Direct. So we have, and this comes down to the Facebook thing, okay? We want to sponsor all of our videos going forward by the new service that we're providing, which is Tech Data Direct, which is an online interactive service and software provider finder for you guys. And for us to do that, we can't live stream to Facebook. So we are going to be launching this next week. We are at the point of just transferring all of our member information into that platform. So we will probably next week be doing an ad hoc live to YouTube and to our website that says, look, this is it, this is what it is, this is how it works, this is what it does. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or any of our social channels to get notified that we'll go live, and I'll show you that at that point. And I think that'll be super interesting to all of you. I hope it will be interesting to all of you. So let me clear all of this and go back to the main thing. So there's my Brexit book there. So if you've not got it, it's Enid Blyton, and I've done something about that on YouTube, which is quite cool. So, guys, that's everything this week. I'm just going to have a look. Oh, there's a stack of you watching. So I'm just checking that we've had no comments, or there's a load of you on our website. So I'm sorry if I've missed any comments that might have come in. But we have gone 5 minutes over. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to keep it to 30 minutes because I know you're all busy, and I know that in Europe it's time to go home, and in the US mainly it's lunchtime-ish in lots of your places. So that's it. That's Thursday Thoughts this week. That's the news. That's everything. If you vehemently oppose our shutting down of the live stream to our Facebook page, let me know, and we'll keep it going, and we'll have a rethink about what it is we're going to do. But at that point, guys, I am going to close out Thursday Thoughts this week and go and enjoy a nice turkey dinner this evening.